Hello, everyone. It's me, Jane McDowell from Rewilding Women's Voices. Welcome to my podcast, Heart Centered Conversations. And today I am truly delighted to welcome my beautiful guest, Frances Butt. Frances, tell everyone what it is that you do.
Hello, Jane, and thank you for having me on your lovely podcast. It's lovely to be a guest. Um,
Mm.
I am now a voiceover artist and chiefly audiobook narrator, and I came to doing this through podcasting. So you never know what's going to happen. I never thought I would be doing it, um, but it feels like I found my thing, and I absolutely love it. Um,
Well, who wouldn't want to listen to your gorgeous dulcet tones?
thank you so
So,
much.
yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, it's great fun. It's great fun. It's a lot
awesome.
of work, but it is great fun. Yeah.
So, Frances, tell us, what's the book that you have brought to the conversations?
Well, it's one of the books I narrated most recently, and it is Virginia Woolf, and it's A Room of One's Own. Now,
Oh, wow.
I tried to read Virginia Woolf. I tried To the Lighthouse, and I tried Mrs. Dalloway years ago, and I just couldn't get into it at all. Um, and then this came up as an audition, A Room of One's Own, and these are the 1928 lectures she gave at a woman's college about women writers and being a writer as a woman. And I just thought it had been another. I thought A Room of One's Own was another novel, but no, these
Mm,
lectures by her, and I found them absolutely fascinating and changed my viewpoint really. Um, I grew up in a huge family, five boys, five girls.
yeah,
So
that is huge.
it is huge. I'm the youngest of 10. So I never felt, although we were growing up in the age of sort of feminism burgeoning, I grew up in the 60s and 70s. I never felt like a feminist per se because I felt as equal with my brothers and they with me, and I'd never had that sense of women, you know, never had a sense of the need to fight for women because other women had done it before us, including Virginia Woolf. So when I came to this book, and it showed me how little opportunity women had had for centuries to do anything other than bear the children and be at home. It
Yeah.
really drove it home for me. So she describes it so beautifully. It's difficult language. Some of it, it's very writerly, not the most accessible language. But boy, oh boy, she's really describes and goes through the history of women's literature and women writers. Um, and she's very sometimes very funny as well.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, how fascinating. So, I mean, having read it, obviously, because it was for your work, but also it chimed with you as well.
Mm.
What's the most standout takeaway from the book that you've had so far?
I would say um, the fact that men have had centuries and centuries of supporting their own endeavors in the arts. So um, men become wealthy. First of all, that it's the feudal system with kings and knights and all that, and then it becomes merchants who get the power. I mean, Donald Trump's he's a businessman, right? So the people with money are running the world, and
Yeah, aren't they just?
they put their money where they want to put their money. So they'll put their money into privileged education for their boys, historically, and so over the centuries, Oxford and Cambridge, which is part of the lecture she's giving, the men's colleges of Oxford and Cambridge have had countless gold poured into them, and they are beautiful places with incredible libraries. And then when she's doing these lectures in 1928, there are a couple of women's colleges that have sprung up quietly in the late 1900s for a few women, and she describes the sumptuous lunch she has in one of the men's colleges with wine and you know fowl and beautiful gravies, silken gravies and things, and puddings galore, and then a nice cigarette and a coffee in the window afterwards, and with a nice chat. And then she goes to one of the women's colleges, and it's really boiled potatoes and prunes. It's very and water.
Oh,
It's because the money has not been there to give to women to do to, and her argument is that a woman needs some money and a room of her own if she's to write,
Yeah,
which is makes sense.
yeah.
But women just haven't had it, money of their own and rooms of their own until very recently. Um, yeah, really recently.
It's really quite shocking
Yeah,
how recent it's been that
yeah,
women haven't had what we take for granted
yeah.
today. I
They,
remember my mum saying to me that when her and my dad got their first house, her name was not allowed to be on the deeds. Like,
it just
what?
wasn't a thing. It's incredible to think, isn't it?
Yeah, she couldn't
Incredible.
open a bank account by herself. She had to have a man come along and
I
like,
remember. Yeah,
because, well, what would happen if a woman were to have her own bank account with no man to hold her hand? Like,
that's only decades ago.
what?
That's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
2nd century. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we're not there yet. We ain't there yet.
No,
So it's
unfortunately.
I mean, this book has really, fired up that awareness in me of just the scale of the lack of resources for women and the access for women to the things that you need to be able to be a creative, let alone to become a scientist or, a woman in any field, a
Yeah,
sport, you name it, that it's very recently people are starting to come up a bit. But, things like tennis championship winning fees or, the
yeah,
prize money. And you just, everywhere you look, you just think this is still really appalling.
yeah.
Um,
And I think I saw I think it was a YouTube clip a little while ago, and I can't remember the name of the woman who was giving the talk, which is a shame. If I remember, I will put it into the notes of the show.
oh,
And she was pointing out how um, in Afghanistan, women had the right to vote way before they did in the States or in Europe, generally speaking, and that they were far more advanced in women's sort of parity with men. And
in
then it
doing
all
it.
got swept away again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, and that's really frightening thought that, I have this feeling that as women we are getting more parity, and this sort of gender divide is sort of slowly
In patches.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's just so like you say, you get these what I perceive to be crazy people in power like Trump or whatever, and they're just making these decisions around women's rights and health, etc. And you just think, well, it's possible that everything could just get swept away because of one
Yeah.
crazy maniacal idiot.
Yeah.
I'm
I
trying
mean,
to keep my
everything in
language.
the world, everything in the world is like that, though. Everything is pretty precarious, and we have been feeling very safe for, relatively safe for quite a long time, and so we're coming into one of those sweeps of history again where we're not so safe, and that's just you get these tides, and we've been through countless tides over centuries. So yeah, I don't. I mean, hopefully, women can still can not get swept away all around the world. But I think we're out of the bottle now, aren't we? I think. I was talking
Well,
to my sister the other day. Actually, she's a guitar composer. She's a guitarist and composer in Germany, and we were talking about her because she's written countless books of music that people can play as they're learning, but also just to play. And she was hoping to be able to live on her royalties when she retired, but now with photocopying or screenshotting, and sadly that's just gone bugger up. But she was also saying how she wasn't taken seriously at all in the 60s and 70s as a composer, by men at all. And now she never wants to be thought of as a woman composer. Just it's not what she's after. She just wants to be known as you don't want to be a woman
yeah,
writer. You want to be a writer.
yeah,
You want to say something about the world. It doesn't really matter. But the way things are, I think it is important that women, and I agree with her her sentiment. But I think it is necessary to talk about and remember and keep remembering how difficult it has been for women. And yeah, um,
yeah, definitely. I think there is something inherent in that age-old question that a lot of artists and creatives get asked. I remember listening to I think it was PJ Harvey, an interview with her, and somebody said to her, "Oh, so what's it like to be a woman in the music scenes?" Like, well, I'm a person. Like, just I don't, you know, when you ask that question, the inherent thing in that question is, well, you're less than your male colleagues, isn't it?
Yeah, how do you do it, lovey?
Yeah,
How do you do
yeah.
it? Yeah, yeah, my daughter spent a good few years creating synthesizers, building synthesizers. So she would go to the expos, which are very masculine environments of these, musical equipment. Very, very. I mean, I used to be a composer, and I know it's very, very male, and you get so practiced. So she's running the stand for the synthesizers she's making, and these guys are going, "Oh yeah, and do you know how to use these, then, love?" And she built them, but the way that they were just, she really felt her what it's like to be a woman in that industry. What's it like to be a woman in that industry? You get treated like that.
Yeah,
Ill
yeah,
this day,
yeah,
you know. So yeah, long way to go. Long way to
yeah.
But Virginia Woolf talks about, our greatest writers. I mean, Jane Austen is obvious, obvious, and then Aphra Behn and some other writers through. And then the Brontes. She talks a lot about these in her lectures.
Mm,
But I don't know if you'd like me to read this now, but I have a clip. I have abridged it so that it's not too long here, but it's a couple of minutes long, 2, 3 minutes long. And it's her talking about imagining what would have happened if Shakespeare had had an equally gifted sister, which is such a brilliant
mm.
idea, isn't it? So,
Yeah. Go for it,
yep,
Francis.
here
Yeah.
we go. Let me imagine what would have happened had Shakespeare had a wonderfully gifted sister. Shakespeare himself went very probably to the grammar school, where he may have learned Latin, Ovid, Virgil, and Horace, and the elements of grammar and logic. He sought his fortune in London. He had a taste for the theatre. He began by holding horses at the stage door. Very soon he got work in the theatre, became a successful actor, and lived at the hub of the universe, meeting everybody, knowing everybody, practicing his art on the boards, exercising his wits in the streets, and even getting access to the palace of the Queen. Meanwhile, his extraordinarily gifted sister remained at home. She was as adventurous, as imaginative, as agog to see the world as he was, but she was not sent to schools. She had no chance of learning grammar and logic, let alone of reading Horace and Virgil. She picked up a book now and then, one of her brothers perhaps, and read a few pages. But then her parents came in and told her to mend the stockings or mind the stew, and not moon about with books and papers. Perhaps she scribbled some pages up in an apple loft on the sly. Soon, however, she was to be betrothed to the son of a neighbouring wool stapler. She cried out that marriage was hateful to her, and for that she was severely beaten by her father. Then he ceased to scold her. He begged her instead not to hurt him. She made up a small parcel of her belongings and took the road to London. She was not 17. She had a gift, like her brothers, for the tune of words. Like him, she had a taste for the theatre. She stood at the stage door. She wanted to act, she said. Men laughed in her face. The fat manager bellowed something about poodles dancing and women acting. She could get no training in her craft. Could she even seek her dinner in a tavern or roam the streets at midnight? At last, for she was very young, Nick Green, the actor-manager, took pity on her. She found herself with child by that gentleman, and so, who shall measure the heat and violence of the poet's heart when caught and tangled in a woman's body, killed herself one winter's night, and lies buried at some crossroads where the omnibuses now stop outside the Elephant and Castle.
Gosh, that's just made me feel really sad. Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Doesn't that tell it beautifully? How
yeah.
there was just no chance whatsoever. However gifted you might be, and how many gifts over how many centuries have been lost to us. because we just weren't allowed. So, isn't it all the more important, girls, if you have a gift or a passion, to follow it? It's so important. It's so important to find your thing, do your thing. If you don't know what your thing is, try different things. Just do things you love. It's so important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. And
Important to show your skills.
likewise,
Oh, yeah.
if you're I was going to say male member. Well, I just did. If
Fine.
you're a male member of a family, then encourage and support as well. Rather,
Absolutely. I'm very lucky. Me and my husband is my champion. I'm very, very lucky. Yeah, not everyone has that either. My mum used to pot. She was a potter and a sculptor just for her own, self-expression. She said she used to say, I need to express myself. And it wasn't to sell or to be, commercial or brilliant or whatever. She just had to do something, make things with her hands. She just had to do it. Uh,
yeah,
I love that. I love that.
yeah. I think lots of people's creativity is kind of stifled, regardless of what, how they identify in which gender or whatever. But it's just like the way the society's set up that, people go to work such and such hours, etc. And people are kind of drained and because they're not doing the things that they love. And yeah, so I think everyone creating some time for themselves to just express themselves
Mm,
creatively somehow. Like
mm.
you say, it doesn't have to be for anyone else's entertainment or viewing
Doesn't
or
have to be your profession,
yeah,
even.
yeah,
Yeah.
it just has to be something that you like
Feeding
doing,
the soul, absolutely. Yeah.
even if you're not, very good at it, or. But
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you enjoy it, just do it.
Oh, that's the other thing is the provision for arts education, which is going down the tubes.
Mm,
I mean, Labour are back in, and it's the being a little bit more hopeful. But even I mean, the Victorians, colliery bands, libraries opening up for the anyone to be able to read books or take borrow books. Um, and I was in the schools of music, bands and orchestras when I was a kid, and they had kids from every walk of life and every level, kids with, no shirts on their backs were
yeah.
lent instruments and they could come and play, and they're phenomenal musicians came out of that. Um, yeah, that's gone up the pictures as well. But so it's again, arts education is so important, or all kinds of education is important. Um, yeah, we need
Mm,
access to things. Access.
yes, yes. So from what you said already, Francis, it
Mhm.
sounds like you've got a very musical and creative family.
Mm. Yeah, a very musical family. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So when did you first realize that you had a talent for music? Because I've heard you sing as well. You've
Oh,
got a beautiful sing.
well, we all did instruments when we were little, So for me, I started piano at 4, but I'm a very poorly coordinated person, so one note at a time is easier for me. So I took up clarinet, which I got much better at than the piano. Um, but then I didn't want to go to music college because I saw my sisters go to music college and I thought that orchestral music wasn't really what I wanted to do. And I fell in love with Shakespeare. I fell in love with Shakespeare. So I went and did an English and drama degree and then got into the film business after that and then was screen composing for a few years. Um,
Wow.
and then came back to singing and then came back to, it all comes around in the end. Back
Yeah.
to,
So your drama training stood you
yeah,
in good stead
acting
for what
training.
you're doing now.
Yeah, yeah, it did. It did, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, things come circle.
Awesome. And I just off the back of what you were just reading by Virginia Woolf,
Yes.
kind of imagining what what Shakespeare's sister might have lived like. It put me in mind of the book. I think it's called Hamlet.
A Hamnet? Hamnet.
Hamnet. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. Have you read that at all?
Yes, I have. Yes, I
Yeah,
have. That's a heartbreaking. Yeah, that's a wonderful book. But that's about the wife left behind.
yeah,
And
yeah. It is
yeah,
heartbreaking, isn't
but
it?
but Shakespeare did have a son called Hamnet. And he did die, I think, and he was absolutely devastated by that. So I think that's where that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a great book. I
it
recommend.
is. I really recommend it. And I also
Trying to remember who
visited
wrote it.
Anne Hathaway's cottage shortly after I
Oh,
read the book just by chance.
yeah, because
So
she's like an apothecary garden, isn't it? It's like, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Again, brilliant with her. I mean, these women who oral tradition and handed down tradition, great knowledge of medicinal herbs and things, and
yeah,
so seamstress skills and things like that. So they're like artisanal skills. So that's where their creativity might have been fed a little bit.
yeah, yeah. And if you think of, you know, if if her life were like that, because obviously it's kind of a work of fiction, but around that time would have been quite dangerous for a woman to be seen as somebody who practiced herbal medicine, etc.
Oh yeah,
So
that also got with this. Yeah, anyone. Yeah, I mean, crying witch has been the go-to, hasn't it, for any woman who seems a bit too intelligent and
yeah, yeah,
might challenge the male whatever dominance of a
yeah, yeah, and
guru.
that's another kind of quite blood chilling thing to think about. That
God. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I'm just wondering how come we haven't risen up and taken over and done to the men what they've done to us? Not that I'm saying that that would be good, but just
It's not what women are. It's not what women are like, though, is it? I mean, there with exceptions. I mean, there are some, you know. Oh, so I think Virginia. No, was it Virginia Woolf? Oh no, Emily Hobhouse, who's somebody I do the voice of in this museum in Liscard or near Liscard, called the Story of Emily Museum. She was a humanitarian around the same time as Virginia Woolf, actually, or late 19th century, early 20th century, and she was a great political activist, and she dreamed of women being able to take leadership roles, but she hadn't met Margaret Thatcher, you know, or Georgia Maloney, or or Imelda Marcos, or who are these? Who are these? We haven't got the best examples, have we?
no, that is very true.
I mean, Michelle Obama could stand up. That would be great, but
Yeah, but then she
she
wasn't
gets
elected, was she? She
she
was,
really gets trolled badly because she is so brilliant. She is
yeah,
so incredible, but she gets a serious bashing by the guys who find her a threat. Yeah,
yeah.
does
It's
get them.
shocking, isn't it, that so many women, politicians especially, have to well, they're subjected to this terror the whole time.
Yeah, and personal
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And really sexually explicit and violent and
Really, really vile things. Yeah, but
yeah,
but it's very juvenile, isn't it? Finding the cheapest, lowest way to hurt someone, and it generally works because it generally does work. It does upset.
well, yeah. I mean, if you feel threatened, then obviously you're going to feel upset, right? It's like your whole nervous system's just going to be jangling, isn't it?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So you can
yeah.
see that's another reason you can see why women just keep quiet because you've only got one life. How much conflict can you stand? If you stick your head above the parapet, can you bear the slings and arrows, as it were? So, yeah, you have to be a brave woman to stand up. Emily Hobhouse, this activist, was so vilified that she's been airbrushed out of British history. And
Yeah, well, I mean,
because
that's happened
an
with so
aide
many
to,
artists as well,
to
hasn't it?
yeah, 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 yeah,
Lots of painters,
yeah,
sculptors who are
yeah.
women, just
Mm.
like I think it's changing now because I think galleries and museums are starting to recognize the work that a lot of women did. And
Cover and look for, yeah, look for. And some of them would have been appropriated by my men and assumed to be by men. And then some women writers would just have male pseudonyms, wouldn't they, or nom de plume, um,
well, in
to so
fact,
they could get their work out there.
yeah, so it was George Eliot, wasn't there? And all the Brontes started off with
Yes.
male names as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Mm.
not good, not good. I was
But
just,
very inspiring book because, it does fire your belly somehow to sort of think, okay, what you can do is important. Whatever you can do, it's important. Uh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And hopefully, you don't have to battle too much to be able to do it.
Yeah, hopefully. But yeah, find a way to do what lights up your little corner of the world a little bit. Even if
Yes,
it's just,
exactly.
even if it's just lighting up you, that's lighting up the world, you know. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I just what you said, what you wrote, what you read, blah blah, put these teeth back in. What you just read out, and you read out the piece about how she committed suicide and was buried at Crossroads. I never realized until a few days ago, like last weekend, that people who back in the day committed suicide were buried at Crossroads.
Yeah.
Yeah. And someone was saying that maybe that's why there's so many accidents at Crossroads because they were buried there so that they couldn't pass over into the heavenly realm.
Isn't that so weird? I mean,
Yeah.
and
And so there's the,
that's another whole conversation, isn't it? That cultural thing is if you end your own life, that's a sin, and and you are not allowed into heaven. Oh my God.
yeah. But
Wow.
it's crazy on so many levels, isn't it? Because if the people that buried the person there actually believed in the Almighty, then wouldn't they just bury them in a cemetery and leave the Almighty to say, no, sorry, you can't come in?
No, no, because again, it's the patriarchal nonsense, isn't it? No, 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 we're going to take over that job
Yeah,
and
yeah,
say over who.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. But my friend was saying that because those people who committed suicide were buried at Crossroads and they weren't allowed to pass over, that the reason for lots of accidents at Crossroads is because the souls of those people are trying to hitch a lift on the souls of the people that get killed at
Oh my goodness.
Crossroads.
There's a thought.
Yeah,
There's a thought.
yeah,
Yeah, I've done a few supernatural thrillers. I love that kind of. It's ooh, does make you think. It does make you think.
yeah, it does. And because I mean, once you get out into the countryside, having been brought up in London, I wasn't really familiar with the whole notion of naming a crossroads. That they've all got these names, and I just think,
Mm.
oh, I wonder, where they come from and what inspired the names of them. Mm.
Yeah, there must be some some research into that. Some enthusiast who's looked at. But I mean, there are books of what street names mean and things and town
Yeah,
stuff. But
yeah,
yeah, it must.
yeah,
Yeah, fascinating.
yeah. But it's taken me off down a little road of
I
thinking,
know you've
well,
gone down rabbit holes.
yeah, well, when they kind of make roads larger and they do massive roadworks and stuff, are they digging up the remains of lots of people who yeah, yeah. It's rather morbid, isn't it?
I've got to tell you a story about a friend of ours whose parents were Australian, and the friends of ours lived in Somerset, in down tiny lanes, North Somerset, and the Australian parents came over. And the mother said, "Why couldn't they make these lanes just a bit bigger in the first place?" Because she just couldn't get her head around, sheep tracks and whatever. So why didn't they just make the roads bigger? Didn't understand it at all.
Yeah, the difference between organic growth and colonialism. Mm, yeah, yeah. So, in order to get away from this rather dour subject I've led us into, hopefully, are you reading anything at the moment,
I've
Francis?
just completed a romance, actually, set in Bristol and Somerset, by Faye Keenan, and it's called A Sky Full of Stars, not a room of one's own, A Sky Full of Stars, and it's coming out in March, mid-March, I think. And it's a sweet story. Yeah, it's about an astronomical archivist who is sent down to collate all the research in this closing down observatory in Somerset, in the wilds of Somerset. And then there's a love story involved. But it's very nice, very nice. I enjoyed that. And I'm just about to audition for a bit of, actually, a bit of the Iliad. We'll
Oh,
see. We'll see if I get that. It's very
in
good.
Latin?
Oh, no, not. Yeah, because you have enough trouble with the names.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
Greek mythology names. Some of them are a bit what? But yeah.
Oh, that's Greek, not Roman, isn't it?
It's Greek mythology, yeah.
Yeah,
That, they do merge, don't they?
we do. But the
Greek
languages are different.
mythology melds into Roman mythology, and then yeah.
Yeah. And are you reading anything for yourself for your own pleasure?
I have also just finished Joe Jackson's autobiography, which I really enjoyed.
Oh, the music.
And yeah, it's out of print. I just found it in a secondhand shop, and it was great. Really enjoyed that, and really recommend before that a book called Crooked Plough, which is by it's a Brazilian novelist called what's he called Itamar Vieira Jr. It's called Crooked Plough, and it's the American spelling Plow, and it's amazing. It's set in the northern plantations of Brazil. It's about two sisters, and it's the most dramatic opening I think I've read in ages. And it's quite a short novel, but really could recommend that. I couldn't put it down.
Oh, well, good. I like that. I'll sort of
Hey.
check it out.
Mm. You learned a bit about
Well,
Brazilian culture.
yeah. Well, thanks, Francis. Thanks so much for reading so beautifully from the book you brought along. That's
Thank you. Thank you.
beautiful.
It's been such a pleasure. It's been lovely to talk about what it was about that book because it's been swirling around in my head ever since. It's such an important point she makes.
Well, it's prompted me to go back and read Virginia Woolf because I also, when I tried to read it in my 20s, I found it really heavy
Not,
going.
not,
So,
it's not the most accessible writing, but
so
yeah,
might dig out my books again. Yeah,
yeah.
they're over there. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Francis.
Thank you
And
for having me.
thanks everyone for tuning in, listening, and watching. I'll put all of the details of the books, etc., that we've discussed in the show notes. And yeah, please remember to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care.